And then no harm comes near your tent. Nobody will enter your space. They can't. So that's why it's always you do you. Don't worry about the other guy.
Right.
Mostly, Sydney, from what I'm seeing, and I say it with great compassion because I find it rather disturbing, the bulk of the population is not interested in doing the real work.
Yes, I think people are more and more. They're not. It's too hard to do real life, and there's so much lying and cheating, and people trying not to work at work and all that. That it's a lot of work to be real.
Yeah, but you can as you do that inner work and be your core, be that essence, it will naturally, and it could take a few months, granted, because this time warp thing on the planet is sort of weird, but it doesn't need to take a few months. It would naturally align you with the people that you need to be aligned with.
Right.
So that's, again, doubling back to the value. The only one to even attempt to do is yourself. And no labels, no judgments. I was horrified at the judgments that were pouring forth from this gal with venom. Now that shows me what's on the inside of her. Now, if the inside is where we create from, oh my, you can see why I would be concerned about her health. What will outpicture?
Right, but what something's fueling it. There's history. There's so much history that's fueling that.
You can say there's history, and I'm going to say what history? She's only got this moment. You see, I will counter that immediately with, yep, and in this moment, this is all there is. I won't go into history anymore, and I surely won't go into the future, because the presence isn't in either place.
Mm-hmm.
So we can argue history till we're blue, but it's going to create blame. It's going to be victimization. He did this to me. You know, I'll share a very intimate personal story. 20 years ago or so, I was dating this pillar of society. Oh my gosh, I was head over heels in love with this guy. And I certainly did not realize the extent of his temper. And one lovely sunny afternoon, when I gently said, you know, I don't feel all that well. I want to go home. Okay. You'd think that's a simple request. No, he had half a bottle of wine in him, and he took the rest of the bottle and smashed it into my head. How he didn't finish me off that day, I'll never know. And it took me a couple of years at that time, because of the conscious space I was in then, to really balance it out. And eventually I did. I went on with my life. Didn't think much of him. Wondered on occasion through the years whatever happened to him. Okay, this week I got the memo of what's happening to him. He's only a year or two older than I, and he's now bedridden in hospice. And I've taken yesterday, because that's when it impacted me, to really love him and ask him to be able to have the grace of an easy passing.
Yeah.
I'm not fully aware of the gifts he gave me, but I'm sure there were many. Number one, he probably sent me free from relationships for a long time so I could do the work to sit right here, right now.
Yeah.
But I could have been a victim. I could have been, woe is me, blame him, he destroyed my life. No. May he have the gift of an easy passing from here on. And may his spirit go with the understanding that I love him completely unconditionally.
Yep.
Now that takes a big soul. Well, dang it. That's who I am. It's who you are. It's who this girl is last night. It's who we are. We are that big. I'm refusing to step into smallness anymore. I've been small all my life. Get over that. Drop it, as I tell myself. We are huge. You'd have to be huge. You are the presence made manifest. Therefore, what past? Who hurt you?
Right.
What insecure future? There is none. I'm fully present with you right now. And that love that I feel for Sydney is actually expanded simply because I know what these 4 days are. The window of the expansion that's being absolutely directed toward your heart center radiates out globally, whether anybody ever turns on this podcast today. It's hitting everyone across the entire world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there we have it.
Yeah, good stuff.
It is good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, darling. I do love you, and you're perfectly, beautifully fine. Carry on. Actually, I take that back. I've said carry on for a long, long time. Yeah, right. No, I realized the other day, and it was shown to me, like, one of those, I'm so sorry. So I've been apologizing to anyone and everyone where I've ever said carry on. But now it's a little bit habitual, so I have to break the habit. Because look at the intonation of carry. I'm busy telling everybody, drop it. Talk about a contradiction of energies. So you don't need to carry on. You need to shine on or twinkle on. But you sure don't need to carry on. Put it down.
Okay.
Got it?
Very good.
Okay.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So hopefully those of you who are tuned in today, you realize when someone calls in, they're a trigger point for me to get information, yes, to that person, but to you as well. So they became your voice, your question, maybe not exactly in the same method that you would ask it, but apply as needed. Take as needed and apply as needed. Because I'm telling you, this stuff works. It absolutely works. And it's a case of, practice makes it work even bigger, better, bestest. It really does. So I'm going to share some other things that have been happening in my world. Okay, then. And some of the things, of course, are not everybody's cup of tea, which absolutely astounds me that people will be so frightened of information. Hopefully, most of you who are listening have begun to drop your fears. But this past week, there has been a wonderful docuseries on, and to get it, you'd have to Google it. I think at this point, we're up to, tonight is the 6th part of the series, tomorrow is the 7th part of the series, and then it will be complete. I don't know if they'll ever run it again, but it's a docuseries called The Sacred Plant, Plant, and then the : Healing Secrets Exposed. Quite honestly, I didn't think I was going to watch this thing. I have watched information, other docuseries, which I was very drawn to. One of them, the first one, was The Truth About Cancer. Absolutely astoundingly terrifying, eye-opening, and it just, you don't even know where to put your rage at the system. And then the next docuseries that I became very in tune with was Vaxxed, Vaxxed, which is the truth about vaccinations, particularly the MMR, which has been single-handedly responsible for enormous tragedy on the face of this earth. Enormous. And for those of you who counter that statement, take a deep breath and watch and get information. You're suffering from disinformation and head in the sand. But so I had those two under my belt, and I thought, well, the sacred plant, I don't know. Well, I decided, let me plunge in. A sacred plant has to do with things you need to find out about. And so I've been watching, and I've had to face more fears. You see, when you get information, you actually have to face your fears. And I've had I didn't know, I think I'm pretty judgment-free until your feet are to the fire, and you have to really take a good look at receiving new information and what are you resisting. That resistance is huge, and it's been very well programmed in us. So the information on the sacred plant has to do with a plant that until the mid-1930s was carried in every single doctor's little black bag. It was used for almost every ailment. It's grown naturally, free, honorably, wild, happy. But then in the 30s, a little thing called the pharmaceuticals began to gain momentum. And as they did, things that were free and happy and healing, and not, it didn't bring money, or they couldn't patent it, they began to be demonized. So the demonology process has been very thorough, with very good people absolutely terrified of this plant. When you watch this docuseries, the first thing that came to my mind, well, the first thing that happens is as you just listen a little bit, not too far into it. Now, granted, I'm very sensitive, so oftentimes things reach me, perhaps that they wouldn't reach you. But I was so shocked with the information that this rage went through me. Raw rage at what we have been programmed and conditioned and disinformationed to believe and swallow. And the next thing, the first session was about an hour and a half long, and by the end of it, I didn't know which was the larger emotion, whether it was rage at what has been done to us collectively and what we have bought into, versus the abject sorrow for the countless people who could be helped by this thing and that are not permitted to be because it's been judged illegal or immoral or against a religion or whatever nonsense we've been fed. And of course, in my case, we all have somebody close to us that's been exposed to a heinous, dreadful disease and then a heinous, horrific death. Not easy. Not easy to get out of their body, not easy to stay in their body. And when you get healthy information and you process it, you have to see things differently, including your own life. A lot of this addresses massive life-altering diseases, the first being cancer, MS, Parkinson's. Both my dad suffered dreadfully from Parkinson's. My brother, who is alive and a few years older than I, he has Parkinson's. And here's the sorrow with this thing. I know my brother loves me very much. I also know that he's kind of relegated me to the realm of woo-woo. I can't tell you how offensive that connotation is to me. It always was. And as I gain wisdom and knowledge and information, it's even more nauseating because it's a mark of disdain, dismissal. And so here's a whole series of healing secrets that could help his journey. And I doubt it will get to him. And when I look at, many of you know the name Martha, my older sister. Oh, my dear. I'm convinced she'd still be here because of the fact that she was a fine metaphysician